Is there a perfect diet out there, or is it just more division being caused amongst all of us? This is Ryan. This is High Carb Regenerator. And one thing I've done over the last 20 plus years, it's getting on 30 years now, is diet. I thought I was too fat to exist. I was the fat kid in the 80s, which, you know, if you were the fat kid in the 80s, you were the only fat kid in your class. And what have I found out over the last 20 plus years of doing this? So I got some notes here. I wanted to talk a little bit about each diet, the digestion, sleep, happiness, ease of use, and then I'm going to talk about a couple other things to close out the video. I'm going to start off with calories in, calories out was definitely the first one that I tried. It was in the bodybuilding magazines at the time, and that's what I was kind of getting my information from. I did also start going to the library. You could read the studies that were being done, and this is why I'm not a huge person into the studies, because you can find a study to support just about anything, even smoking cigarettes. So the one that I tried was KETO. You got this little formula that you would find in the magazines, and you would kind of apply that to yourself. You would use the body weight that you wanted to get to, and you would eat the amount of calories that would get you to that body weight. It never worked. Never worked. It was weird. I worked out with these people who would literally eat pizza, donuts, M&Ms, whatever the hell they wanted to. They were shredded. And there was me watching my calories, counting everything, doing everything healthy, and I was the one that just couldn't lose the weight. So then I came across keto, and I really wasn't that big at this time. I came across keto. I'm like, this will help me get to the finish line. Let me try this out. From 99 to about 2001, I tried keto pretty exclusively, and it did. It helped a lot, but I was also walking an hour a day. It was great, right? I thought it was great, and then it stopped working, and I was always tired, and I had hormone issues, so I started going to this doctor. He started doing blood tests on me, and all of a sudden, I'm like, I barely even had testosterone left. I was like the testosterone of a female damn near. And I still struggle with it to this day. And did it screw me up? This was in my formative years. Did I do keto in my formative years and permanently screw up my pituitary gland? I don't know. That's possible. So then I did what he wanted me to do. I went back on KETO. He had me come in. They calculated everything out by, you know, VO2 max, blood tests and all that, how much I should be eating. I did it. Lost. I didn't lose any weight. I gained weight. So then I went back on keto. Then I went on carnivore. Didn't have the same effect. And I kept doing that. And then all of a sudden I got myself up to like in the 400s. I went to the endocrinologist. He looked at me. He dictated into his little machine, this patient is more abundantly obese. Didn't know what that meant at the time, but it meant irreversibly when I found that out actually reading this book right here. It's actually, that word is in that book, The Rice Diet. During this time, I went back and forth between calories in, calories out, keto, carnivore, from like that 99 to 2009. Sometimes great, sometimes not. I finally came across high carb, low fat, raw vegan stuff. Not gonna, you know, I've already broken this down in other videos. And I did one OMAD. It was great. I lost a ton of weight, but I was always hungry. And then I couldn't hold it anymore, so I binged really hard on like Domino's pizzas. Then I came across raw vegan. It was great. Lost so much weight. I lost so much weight. I wear bare feet. Shoes, and I made my own shoes, so I had a leather punch at the time, and I had a leather belt still from when I wasn't vegan. I actually had to keep punching holes in this thing because I couldn't keep my pants on anymore, and I don't like buying new pants because I'm cheap. And that kind of spiraled into it just became harder and harder for me to do it because of my job. So I started doing raw till 4. I added starches in. I gained a little bit of weight. I gained a little bit of weight, not a ton. It wasn't spectacular. It wasn't hurting my feelings or anything. I just kind of like turned into, well, just as long as it's vegan kind of a situation. And I did gain a decent amount of weight, and I went back on till raw till 4, started riding my bike. Then, it's just the thing goes on and on. I did 50-50 plate. I did only potatoes. I did rice diet in the last 5 years is what I've done. Then I did raw till 4 again, then I did raw only, then I did starch solution, then this was back and forth. So I wanted to break down my digestion on each one. So when I did calories in, calories out, my digestion was not great. Not great at all. I was having a lot of gas. I was having a lot of acne. When I did keto, it was kind of the same, but once in a while my digestion would be really good. Then when I kind of broke down and I started just eating whatever the hell I wanted to, that's actually when my digestion was the best. I had great digestion. I really wasn't paying attention to what I was eating. My weight actually was coming down. And then it wasn't coming down fast enough. So then I start, of course, finding my next diet. And that next diet was carnivore. My digestion wasn't that great. And I was really starting to smell like ammonia, and my digestion and my organs were really having a hard time. So I added a little bit back in. And then I came into the OMAD. My digestion on that was phenomenal. But my majority of what I ate every day was greens or greens juice. I really wasn't eating that many calories. I can't even imagine my calorie count was probably 500. So I was losing a ton of weight. I lost 50 pounds in like a couple months, but I don't recommend that. My digestion was phenomenal on raw vegan. Phenomenal. It was amazing on raw vegan. It didn't matter what raw I was eating, high carb, low fat, a little bit of fat, a lot of fat. Didn't matter. Digestion was great. I had this sludge coming out of me. I had worms coming out of me. I had all this stuff that was backed up from all those diets and all those previous years. I mean, probably 80 pounds of backup. I know it's gross. Coming out when I did raw vegan. Then I added in a little starch. My digestion was still pretty good, just as long as a majority of my diet was raw. Then I added in mostly starch. My digestion's not been isn't good or hasn't been good. And my digestion hasn't been good on potatoes only, hasn't been good on rice diet, hasn't been good on 50-50 plate, hasn't been good on starch solution, hasn't been good on raw till 4. It's been nuts. And I think the reason for this is because my body just doesn't even know what I'm doing anymore. It's kind of like if you watch The Vegetable Police. He does a new diet every whatever. I don't even have to do that anymore. I've been high carb, low fat for years. And my digestion's still messed up from all of this kind of switching up. Because I never know what to do, because nothing's ever good enough for me. I always have to constantly be switching things up instead of just letting the body go. And that's kind of what I've been doing lately. I've kind of been just like, if it's vegan, fine. I'm not like eating a lot of processed food. I do have a little bit more fat in the diet, because I've noticed that when I'm too high carb, low fat, my digestion just does not work well. My answer to this question, what was the best digestion? 100% was raw vegan. 100%. I mean, there was just no issues. Like, it's almost crazy how, like, you almost can't even make it to the bathroom quick enough on raw vegan. You eat, it's coming out in 30 minutes. It's gone. Like a pooper chute. Crazy. No gas. It's crazy. Then you add starch in, it's a little worse, but it depends on the starch. If it's like potatoes and rice, it's fine. It's some of the other starches, people have a hard time with. So my answer is, if you really look at it, the keto, the carnivore, digestion wasn't great. Calories in, calories out, digestion wasn't great. When I wasn't really paying attention to when I was eating, I was actually just I was actually enjoying what I was eating and eating things that I actually like to eat and still losing weight. My digestion was great because I didn't have that mentality anymore. Raw vegan, it was great. I actually kind of liked raw vegan for the most part. The freezing, I didn't like. So I had to come off of it. So that's my answer. Sleep. Sleep is so much better when you're eating high carb. It's so much better because what happens when you wake up, the reason you wake up is because your cortisol levels are high. And as you eat carbohydrates throughout the day, those carbohydrates are going to start lowering the cortisol. And once you start lowering the cortisol, the melatonin can start hiring. And once that starts getting higher and higher and higher, you start getting sleepier towards the end of the day and you can actually sleep. If you're eating nothing but high fat and high protein, or high protein, low fat, whatever it is, if it's not carbohydrate rich, that cortisol isn't going down. This is why people on a keto diet or carnivore diet really report of a lot of having to take melatonin and stimulants just to get through the day, because you're never lowering cortisol and you can't actually sleep like deep sleep. So if sleep has become an issue on any of your diets, your carbohydrates are not high enough. I guarantee it. I've actually done this. I've proven this with blood tests. I've done, do it yourself. Test these diets out. Find an endocrinologist or just even a general practitioner that's going to work with you, and get your blood test done. Try these different diets out maybe for 6 months and see what your blood tests look like. It's crazy. Happiness on the diet. I think that just really is up to you. I think happiness comes from within, but the happiness also comes from ease of use. And I'm going to talk about these kind of at the same time, because ease of use and happiness generally kind of coincide. If you're having, like, if you're on the Gregor diet and you got to get all 12 whatever things in, or whatever he's talking about, or if you're on the Furman diet and you got to eat your gas bomb salad, you know, like, I don't understand some of the stuff that guy says. And he was even called kind of a quack by T. Colin Campbell. You know, if you're constantly having to get all of your whatever's in, it becomes an absolute rat race, and it's absolutely miserable, and you become miserable. And I think that partially raises your cortisol. And if your cortisol's high, your digestion's not going to be good no matter what you do. So you got to have more carbohydrates. Ease of use and happiness on the keto carnivore. I mean, you see how angry these people are. They damn near have roid rage. If you watch a keto person or carnivore person long enough, I'm pointing at my computer just in case you're wondering. If you watch them long enough, you're going to see roid rage. You're going to see them flipping out about something. And I was the same way. I don't know anybody who wasn't on keto that didn't have a rage about something, because you're always raising your cortisol's always high. You can see it on these doctors who promote this stuff. Their skin is like the color. Let's give you a visual here. It's like the color of this notebook. It's because it's always high. You're always frustrated. Your body's always struggling to get the cortisol lower and the amount of carbohydrates that it needs. You're always in struggle. The ease of use is there though. So like the happiness and the ease of use isn't really tied together on the keto, because all you got to do is just eat some meat and like broccoli, you know, like beef and broccoli, or just beef if you're on carnivore. So the ease of use there does not match up with the happiness. The ease of use on the CETO, that depends on what you're eating. You know, if you're going off a plan that says you got to eat like 30 different things a day, or if you're trying to stuff yourself. You know, I see a lot of people talking about this on Instagram. You know, well, this smoothie will stuff you. You know, you won't have to eat for 12 hours. Is that a good idea? I don't know. The harder the diet gets, the more you got to put into the diet, the more things you got to find at the store, the more things you got to buy. The happiness factor, it really goes away, and so does the ease of use. The happiness definitely on the high carb, low fat is definitely the highest it's been, especially the more raw I've gotten. I've noticed a happiness spike, and ease of use, especially if you're eating raw. I mean bananas, you know, there's not a whole lot of work there. Watermelon, there's not a whole lot of work there. Now, if you're going to be doing the gourmet, you know, that's not maybe an ease of use, but it just really depends on what you want. The life expectancy. Now, if you look at the Eskimos who eat primarily basically a keto diet just because of where they live, their life expectancy is like 65. If you look at the Okinawans who eat the most unedible food on the planet, sweet potatoes mostly, they're in the hundreds supposedly, right? So the more carbohydrates in your diet, the higher your life expectancy is going to be. That's just plain old simple. We can see it happening in real life. If you look at you know, the Asian population prior to 1980, prior to really eating the Western diet, they had barely any diseases. They barely had anything. Most of them were poor, and they died from something that just a simple antibiotic would have cured. Otherwise, they would have kept it going. But if you look at the people in those same areas who ate like Westerners, their life expectancy was significantly less than the people who couldn't afford anything, right? They were just eating on the pauper food. If you look at ancient Egypt, there's scrolls that talk about this. You know, when the royalty would get cancer or get heart attacks or whatever, they would be put on their servants' diets. Their servants' diets kept the servants alive way longer than the royalty was ever alive. That should tell you something. So the life expectancy, the less meat, the less death that you have in your diet, the longer your life expectancy is going to be. It just is what it is. A lot of people talk about anti-aging. I don't know what to say about that. I think anti-aging is just a mindset. I think the more you think about something, the more you think about aging. I think the more you age yourself, the more you think about something, the more it expands, the more it comes into your reality. So if somebody's always thinking about anti-aging, I think that alone is going to undo what you're thinking. I mean, I'm 43. Most people don't think I look 43. I just never thought about aging. It doesn't bother me. Like, I'm not attached to this planet. You know, I'm not attached to any of this. The more the more of that you get, I think the more anti-aging it is. I don't think it has anything to do with diet, because we can point out any of these people who do these diets. It doesn't matter what the diet is. You can find people that look young. You can find people that look terrible for their age. It doesn't matter the diet. I myself have pointed out Genesis 1:29, which says, eat all seed-bearing fruit as your meat. Then you can also point out the fact that Jesus was asked about what you should eat, and he says, don't worry yourself about what you eat or what you wear. So that is a conflicting statement. However, back in Jesus' day, they didn't have a vending machine. They didn't have junk food on the corner. They didn't have a Taco Bell sitting there. So that might have a lot to do with it. I mean, the loaves of bread talked about in the Bible were handmade loaves from a baker. They didn't have 35 ingredients in them, half of them preservative. They didn't have any of this kind of stuff. It was only good for a day. If you like, when I think of back in my childhood, you went and got a loaf of bread, and that loaf of bread was moldy in like 3 days. You had to use it. This is why, if you look at the rations from World Wars in the past, everybody was going to get their loaf of bread every day, because it's not going to last. It's just that there's no preservatives in it. So there was that factor back in Jesus' day. So you really have to look into that. And in closing, I think you can find anybody thriving on any diet at any time, any place. We have unlimited capability now of looking into each other's lives, and you can find somebody thriving on all diets. It really boils down to what's going on inside the body and how is that diet affecting that. Because on the external, you're not going to see a whole lot unless you've got the real deep bags under your eyes, or you've got stuff going on in your eyes, or if you got always just like acne or dry skin, or that's a real clear indicator. But if you don't have a lot of that going on, there's not a whole lot of external indicators that you're going to have just how bad your diet. Externally, we see people thriving. We might see somebody who's doing carnivore who's shredded, but then they talk about they've just got their blood tests and their arteries are like 75, 80, 90% clogged. So I would not put an indicator on that. I mean, some people are just going to age more than others. Some people are going to have a better appearance than others. Some people, like my mom's choir director, she was really big in the choir. The director died at age 39, heart attack. He ran marathons. He was an exercise freak. He was so small. He was ripped. Died at 39 of a heart attack. So the externals, the people that are appearing to be thriving, internet is a special thing where you can hide what your reality is pretty easily. So I wouldn't go on that. So my conclusion is this, right? I've tried all of them. I have not had the night puking. I have not had the meat sweats. I have not had smelling like ammonia. I haven't had any of that stuff since going high carb, low fat, or just vegan. So I can say that for a perfect example, if you don't want any of that stuff, if you're having a really hard time eating nothing but meat, that might be a reason alone just to switch. The perfect diet, honestly, I don't know that it exists. Even when I started this channel, I thought there was a perfect diet, and I'm finding out that I don't know that it's true. I really don't know that it's true. I think the more we stick to Genesis 1:29, I think the better off we are. Honestly, I mean, it's getting so hard to find ripe fruit these days. I mean, it was so much easier even 10 years ago when I started, more than 10 years ago when I started, than it is now. The perfect diet is the diet that kind of matches all of these: the digestion, the sleep, the happiness, the ease of use. If you can find a diet that does that, a diet that allows you to live the life that you're looking to live, I think that's the perfect diet. I have not found one that was significantly better than the other. I mean, obviously keto and carnivore is probably the easiest to deal with these days because everybody thinks they need so much more protein than they actually do. But I wouldn't suggest it. You might go 5 years on keto and have the best time, and then all of a sudden reality hits the body and something malfunctions, like my liver and kidneys and everything else did. And that is my conclusion for this video after doing this for 20 plus years. I have to say that unless you get your hormones in check, your weight is just never going to be where you want it to unless you're starving yourself. So really get that in check. That's my final piece of advice. Peace. Comments, questions down below. Like, subscribe, and I'll talk to you in the next video.